We're talking about pre-marriage preparation, and this is the first session of the pre-marriage preparation program. It's the session where the counseling couple, the church couple, meets with the couple who's intending to marry and begins to get to know them, to be acquainted, and to ask them questions that will shape the entire process. We hope that there will be a friendship that develops, so that as problems develop after the marriage, this couple will be on hand to be of help to the newly married couple. We hope that there will be a level of trust that is also developed, because some of the things that are going to be dealt with in this program, and particularly in this session, are going to be the kinds of things that people are not necessarily going to want to share. We want to discover in this first process the eligibility for marriage. Is this couple actually eligible for marriage? Now, I probably should explain that we allow a broader group of people to enter this first session than we will from this point on. And the reason is we expect that there will be some unbelieving couples, at least one of them as an unbeliever, and we want to have the opportunity to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with them. And so we need to explore certain things. Are they saved? Are they mature in their Christian faith? Are they qualified for marriage? For instance, a divorce, some other thing that would disqualify them for marriage. We want to look at their maturity. Is this a couple that's really thought seriously about this marriage and where it will lead, or are they immature and naive and need more instruction? And in particular, we want to identify those trouble areas that are going to prove to be problems, and virtually every couple is going to have some areas of difficulty, whether it's them or family or whatever it is. There may be some elements that have to be addressed because they are problem areas. So being realistic, having a concept of what biblical marriage is and the principles that go with that. Do the couple really know each other well enough to marry? And what are the problems which need to be brought out throughout the process? So let me talk about the process a little bit as to how it works. We talk about the assignments that will take place. In other words, the whole overall program, pre-marriage preparation program, is discussed so that the couple has a sense of where this will lead, of the time commitments that it will involve, and there will be time commitments and homework assignments and preparation and meetings that will take place, and it will occur over a period of several months. So that's spelled out so they understand at the front end where all of this is going to lead in terms of their commitment. We also make it very clear in this initial session that we are not committing to perform the marriage or have the marriage performed in our church. This is a time of discovering whether we're comfortable with their marriage and they're comfortable with us and willing to go along with the program as we've laid it out. So we make it very clear, meeting with this couple is no guarantee that a wedding will actually be the result. And we make it clear that no invitations should be sent out until after we've reached the point where it's clear that we are going to be willing to move ahead with the marriage process. We expect there will be some who either through their initiative or ours come to the realization that this relationship really should not culminate in a marriage. Now, here are some of the questions that I've found to be very helpful, and I want to be honest and say not all of these questions can be asked or should be asked in the first session, but they are questions that need to be asked somewhere in the program because they reveal things that need to come to the surface in order for us to really adequately counsel them. So some of the easy ones, the conversational ones, would be, how did you meet? How long have you dated? How long have you been engaged, if you are? And basically trying to figure out what the length of that relationship is. How well do they know each other? These days with internet dating services, people may make commitments to marry when they really are not that far along in terms of their relationship? When do you hope or plan to get married? Those kinds of things, I think, need to be asked. Here's one that I love, and it's a kind of curveball you throw. The issue is finding out, does each of these, each person in the couple, does each one have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? Now, you could ask them that question. What's more revealing is to ask their mate and to say to the girl, how did John come to faith? And sometimes there's some real hesitation and they really don't know. Now, it may be that John is a believer and he may share his testimony in a very convincing way. What's disturbing is that the young lady never asked that question. And that begins to tell you something about how much thought has gone into this and how much biblical principle enters into it. So each person is asked to share the testimony of the other. It is a great joy when there is a very full disclosure of the way in which that person met Jesus Christ. And there is cause for concern when that is not able to be answered with any real clarity at all. Then I say to people, tell me how you know that your mate is a Christian. What are some of the things that would be evidences in their life that they are a believer and they are maturing in their faith? One of the things I really look for is character qualities. It really distresses me that when marriage is dealt with today, it's dealt with on the level of compatibility. How similar are you to each other? I don't see that as a biblical basis for marriage. And the other is personality. It's interesting to me how often each party in that couple wants to look at things in terms of their personality and rather than in terms of their character. And so I ask them character questions. What is it about your mate's character that attracted you to them and makes you want to move in the direction of marriage? Here's another question. Have either of you been in love before? That obviously is a leading question, but it's seeking to pursue the question of how many relationships have they had. I use the term in love because I want to speak about serious relationships. So if they're honest and fess up to that, then I'll say, why did that relationship end? And I'm very curious to know how that relationship, which they considered to be in love, how that relationship came to an end. And then I ask this question: why are you assured that this relationship that you're now in won't end in the same way? How is this relationship of being in love different from your previous relationships of being in love? Here's a question you have to ask. Have either of you been married before? I failed to ask that question once, and I learned my lesson. Fortunately, I learned it in time, but you really have to know what the backdrop and the background for these couples are, because it determines whether or not you can actually pursue the marriage relationship of performing the wedding with them. Here's another one. Have you ever been sexually intimate with each other? And then you have to say, at some point, have you been sexually intimate with others in the past? And the question that we feel obliged to ask is, are you currently sexually intimate with each other? At that point, we believe that in virtually every case, this couple needs to come to terms with the fact they're living in immorality, and marriage should not be a means of sanctifying their sin. So their physical relationship is important. And the other question that I think is important to ask is there any possibility, if they are sexually active, is there any possibility that you're pregnant? That is, in my opinion, a bit of a game changer, and I need to make some decisions, and they need to make some decisions. But one of the things that I refuse to do as a wedding officiant is to conceal or cover up a pregnancy and so that they want a hurried up marriage ceremony and so on. I personally cannot participate in that. So I need to know if pregnancy is on the agenda. The other questions that I ask have to do with whether or not they've had some relationship, a sexual relationship that is outside the boundaries of what the scripture would call normal and godly. If there is any instance of homosexuality, of sexual child abuse, of any of those kinds of things, that needs to be brought to the table because it will greatly impact their relationship. Sexual abuse in the life of one mate or the other, those are huge in terms of the kinds of repercussions they have on a relationship. They need to be brought up and dealt with, and the other mate needs to move into that relationship knowing the kinds of things that are in store. One of the other questions that I ask is, how do your family and friends feel about your intention to marry? We really think it's important to have a parental consent in almost every circumstance. There may be some where that's not the case, but we like to know if parents have a problem, what is the nature of that problem and why is that not being addressed, or how is it being addressed? Another element may be that the problem may be on the parent side. And one of the issues we see in pre-marriage counseling is whether or not parents are willing to allow their children to go. The whole issue of leaving and cleaving. Are there parents who are possessive, who demand that you live near them, who are going to put demands on that marriage that are not really godly or biblical? Is each mate willing to draw back and draw together in that? And so that's a very important question. Another question I ask is this: name one area in your mate's life that's a problem that needs to change. I want to know that these people are looking at each other not through rose-colored glasses, but they're looking at each other through biblical lenses. And I want to hear them say, yes, my mate, I think, has a problem in this area. She's working on it, or he's working on it. But I recognize that to be a problem. I recognize it's going to be a problem that comes into the marriage, and it's going to be a problem that I have to come to terms with in one way, shape, or form. I'll ask maybe more indirectly, name the greatest strength and the greatest weakness of the one that you intend to marry. I'm looking for realistic appraisals of character and issues that I think are going to be arising. Another question is, describe one argument that you've had and tell us how you've resolved it. How are they dealing with conflict in their relationship? That is huge to me. And the last question that I probably alluded to, but I think has to be raised is there anything from your past that you have not told me, and more importantly, you have not told your mate, that is going to impact your relationship once you are married? That is a critical question, and it's something that needs to be dealt with in the confines of the whole pre-marriage preparation program. Those are some of the questions that I think you may want to contemplate as you deal with couples who are looking forward to marriage.